If you're brand new to PC gaming, one of the first huge decisions you gotta make is going with a gaming laptop or a desktop. Hopefully by now you've already seen the obvious and you'll know that the FPS numbers are quite a bit different. But price to performance isn't everybody's top priority. There's a ton of other really important factors to consider. That's exactly what we're gonna be talking about in this video, and honestly 99% of this is going to relate to any budget you're considering, not just $1,000. But what I will say is that I spent a ton of time researching what the best $1,000 laptop was, so this is basically as much value as possible. We're comparing that against desktops from our most recent and extremely competitive build competition video, so these are also as much value as possible. Essentially, this is the best case scenario versus the best case scenario. Regardless though, please understand that PC gamers don't have to be PC builders, so let's lay it all out on the line and explain the pros and cons of these different options. And real quickly, if you're new around here, my name is Zach and I'm just trying to help you jump into the world of gaming PCs. I make a ton of easy to copy desktop build guides, we sell pre-builts on zttbuilds.com, and every now and then we'll talk about laptops like today. The best part about my business is I don't have to sway you one way or the other, I just want to show you all of the options, which is exactly what we're doing today. Now real quickly, before we get a little bit in the weeds, here's everything that we're covering in this video. Again, I promise this isn't just going to explain that you can get more FPS on a desktop like you've already heard before. First, we'll talk about exactly how you should hunt for the best gaming laptop for your price range, then we'll jump into the different categories that we'll be comparing between laptops and desktops. These include thermal and power limits, raw gaming performance, mobility and space, full setup costs, ease of entry, upgradability, stability, and then finally a quick section about the cons you'll face no matter which option you go with. Honestly, I've been putting off this video for a while now because I knew that if I'm gonna do it, I gotta do it right and include all of this information because this is a big decision that's gonna affect you for several years. Okay, so let's first quickly explain what makes this specific laptop a best case scenario and how you can find the best value no matter what your price range is. The number one priority to focus on first is just getting the best possible graphics card. Yes, there are plenty of other factors to consider, but nothing will have a bigger impact on your gaming performance than the GPU. If you have $1,000 to spend, then you need to figure out what's the best GPU for that price range. If you have $1,500 to spend, figure out the best GPU for $1,500 laptops. Same thing with $2,000 or any price range. One of the quickest ways to do that is just search on Amazon for $1,000 gaming laptop and get a lay of the land. You can find out pretty quickly that some of them include an RTX 5060, but nothing higher. If you then search for RTX 5070 laptops, which is the next model up, you'll see that none of them are anywhere close to $1,000. There is no 5060 Ti for laptops, just as a heads up. Okay, so now we figured out which GPU we're gonna need, now we gotta figure out everything else. Here's where way more research is required than I'll explain in a video like this, but personally, I check out the screen and then the quality of life features. For the screen, do you want it to be a higher refresh rate, OLED, etc., and also which resolution is best for your GPU. I did find some 1440p RTX 5060 laptops, but just because the resolution is higher doesn't make it better. The RTX 5060 is more of a 1080p GPU in my opinion, because if it's pushing all those extra pixels in 1440p, those FPS numbers are gonna drop significantly, and I personally rather have the higher FPS. Outside of the screen though, then you're looking for quality of life, such as the weight and form factor, ports and IO, and all sorts of other stuff that you can find from dedicated reviews. Honestly, I watched maybe 5 videos and saw this Lenovo Loke 15 was in the top 3 of almost everybody's $1,000 list. Aside from the RTX 5060, it's rocking an 8-core and 16-threaded Ryzen 7 250, 16 gigs of DDR5 RAM, half a terabyte SSD, and that screen is a 15.6-inch 1080p and 144 Hz. Not an OLED, by the way. I think this is one of the very top options in this price range, but now let's move on to the top options over on the desktop side of things. Now, if you can't already tell, we're not exactly talking about pre-built gaming PC desktops, only custom builds that you would do yourself. In mid-2026, I honestly just don't really recommend $1,000 pre-builds. The price of RAM and SSDs have made these very tough to put together competently and make a profit for pre-built companies. They do exist, but they have to use parts that would equate to half or maybe even a quarter of the performance of these examples today. Now, these may also look familiar familiar to you if you've watched our build competition video from a couple weeks ago. My employees Nick and Aiden put these together on their own, and then I was the judge of them. I don't want to spoil the video for you, so I'm not going to tell you who won, but both of these are about as good as it gets for custom building a $1,000 gaming PC. Nick's small form factor build inside the NZXT H1 is rocking a Ryzen 7 7700, 32 gigs of DDR5, and an RTX 4070 Super. Aiden's beautiful red build inside the open frame Thermaltake Core P3 has a Ryzen 7 5800X, 32 gigs of DDR4, and an RX 7900 XT. Like I said, best case scenario versus best case scenario. So let's actually start comparing them now. The first category we'll start with is thermal and power limits. And this may sound super nerdy and technical at first, but it's a very important factor to consider. We're not deep diving into the weeds here either, so we're gonna keep this part short. The concept that you have to realize is that laptop components are significantly held back compared to their desktop counterparts. The RTX 5060 is called the same whether it's on a laptop or in a desktop, but the desktop model will perform better. With laptops, there is just so much engineering that's required just to get these chips and components to operate at a safe temperature inside these tiny chassis, especially over a long period of time. And in order to do that, they have to lower the amount of wattage that goes into these chips. On a desktop, this dedicated RTX 5060 GPU with 2 or 3 fans of its own inside a full ATX tower with case fans everywhere doesn't really have to worry about cooling, and it can go pedal to the metal for hours. But in a laptop, that'll more than likely have to be thermal throttled, which lowers the performance to keep it under like 100 degrees. If you've been around PC gaming for a while, then you'll already know this, but this is where I see a lot of PC gaming rookies get tripped up. If you happen to see a laptop with an RTX 5060 and you're debating between that or a 5060 desktop, just realize that the desktop will be getting a higher frame rate, provided no other crazy problems or weird cases are going on with those systems. And speaking of frame rate, let's jump into the raw gaming performance. And like I said in the intro, I want to keep this part of the video short. I'm not going to drag this on. Unless you're brand spanking new to PC gaming, I don't think this will be a surprise to you, or at least it shouldn't be after what I just explained. The desktops are definitely going to get a higher frame rate than the laptop. But the real question is, by how much? Because with this example, we're going to see a drastic difference. We're dealing with the best possible custom-built desktops, including some even used components. We're going to see significantly better performance with Nick and Aiden's build compared to the laptop. We'll start with a boring synthetic benchmark first, because this Steel Nomad shoots out just an easy score that measures both the CPU and GPU, and it's really easy to compare. Our $1,000 laptop cranked out a score of 2,387, but Nick's PC did almost double that at 4,576, and Aiden's got over double at 5,563. Now, before you just think that the laptop performance is bad, the gaming benchmarks are actually pretty good. In Battlefield 6, the laptop got 74 FPS in 1080p medium. Arc Raiders in 1080p medium got 94, Fortnite in 1080p Pro got 114, and the brand new Resident Evil got 78 FPS in 1080p high. Every game is legit playable, and that's honestly pretty impressive given our current market prices. Don't let anyone tell you that a 5060 laptop can't handle modern gaming. It'll play any game you throw at it, at least for now. But now when we're comparing against the desktops, these FPS numbers are significantly higher. Again, we're looking at doubled or close to double in performance for some of these titles, but the crazy part is that these FPS numbers for the desktops aren't even in 1080p, they're actually in 1440p and still getting that much higher. So in terms of price to performance, we're talking about a significant increase in FPS, but also a complete resolution higher. This is not a close competition, but that's why I'm gonna keep this part short, because there are way more other factors to consider. Mobility and space is up next, and in case this wasn't obvious as well, laptops have a huge advantage in this department. If you're someone that travels for school or work, then lugging around a desktop, monitor, peripherals, and all that certainly isn't ideal. Laptops can be a game changer, and honestly the difference of you gaming on a vacation or a quick 3-day work trip versus having to resort to just old school RuneScape on your phone. Laptops also have the big advantage if you're in a tiny apartment or any spot that just doesn't have enough room for those beautiful Instagram-worthy setups. Now, I do feel obligated to throw out a quick reminder that small form factor desktops do exist like Nick's PC. You can buy even smaller 8 to 15 liter cases and jam-pack them full of components so they don't take up a lot of space, but they'll still pack all the desktop grade horsepower. That's an option, but that still won't compete against the laptops for this category. Now, there's also a different version of mobility, and that's for people that want to pick up and play their gaming PC all around their house, in the backyard, on the couch, and things like that. This one's a little bit misleading though, because even though the laptop can physically do that, it's probably not as good of an experience as you think. Most gaming laptops these days are underpowered when they're not plugged into the wall, and this results in an even tighter restriction on their gaming performance. Without external power, the GPU may not be getting the same wattage compared to when it's plugged in, and even if you have a model where the performance isn't impacted all that much, the battery is gonna die pretty quickly. Personally, I wouldn't buy a gaming laptop if this is the #1 priority for you. I'd rather get a handheld. I love my Steam Deck and more recently ROG Ally X. Whenever I want to game on an airplane or on my couch so I can prop my feet up, this is what I do instead of a laptop. After that though, let's evaluate the full setup cost because I don't know why, but I see so many people completely ignoring this one. This is going to change based on how far you want to take your battle station, but at an absolute minimum, a laptop does include a monitor, keyboard, audio, and even a battery backup as some additional value. Now sure, I think most of us want a game with a proper mechanical or Hall effect keyboard and a bigger, higher quality monitor, but that's not required, especially if you're just starting out. The gaming experience of using the built-in laptop, keyboard, monitor, and speaker isn't terrible if you buy the right model. For people traveling or if you don't want your gaming setup to take a ton of room, this is perfectly fine, even for years if that's all you want to do. If you're on a tight budget, this will also save you anywhere from $100 to $300 on a monitor and then another $20 to $200 on the keyboard. So definitely factor that into your budget if you're considering going down the desktop route because you'll definitely need to buy them just to use this thing at all. No matter which option you choose, you'll also have to buy at least a gaming mouse and hopefully mouse pad, so keep that in mind. Now, we're on a little streak of laptops dominating these comparisons, and I'm gonna throw you one more before things start to shift around a little bit. Ease of entry is definitely something to consider because there is a drastic difference between a laptop and a custom-built desktop. If all you care about is gaming as quickly as possible with your friends and you have no interest in the PC building hobby, then you can do like 2 hours of research and go to your local store like a Best Buy and be up and gaming on the same day. Laptops will come with the operating system and important software fully installed for you. Make sure to remove the bloatware, obviously, but then it'll be ready to play with the games you throw at it. With a desktop, again, PC building is a completely separate hobby in my opinion, that will require days, if not weeks worth of research for all of the individual components. You'll then have to wait for it all to ship out to your house and then finally put it all together. More than likely, something will go wrong, so you'll have to troubleshoot that as well. It's a way bigger deal building compared to just buying, and yeah, this comparison applies to pre-built desktops as well. I hate when people judge others for going down the laptop or pre-built route. Sometimes convenience and ease of entry is their #1 priority, so that's exactly what you should do regardless of what anyone else says. Upgradability, on the other hand, is where things start leaning towards the desktop side again because there's not a lot you can do with a laptop. Now real quickly, you may not be thinking in the future right now and realizing if upgradability is even important to you at all, so let me explain what's gonna happen to you in probably a few years. Even if you buy a really good gaming laptop or build a super powerful desktop, in a few years time, you'll more than likely be craving some additional performance. Not only will you be used to your new baseline of how much FPS you can get in games and naturally want more, but over time, games get harder and harder to run and thus requiring more processing power. We've had a few games launch actually optimized in the past 6 to 12 months, but overall, games are getting less and less optimized, and I feel like we're expected to upgrade more and more these last few years. 2 years from now, if you bought a laptop, you don't have the option if you want to spend a little bit of money to get an FPS increase. All you can typically upgrade is the RAM and SSD, both of which have minimal impact on the games you're playing. With a desktop though, maybe you do want to spend the money on a CPU upgrade for just $300, or maybe you have a bit more money for a $500 GPU upgrade. Not only is that something you can do, but you can also offset the cost of that upgrade by selling the old component that's getting upgraded. If you have a desktop RTX 5060 right now and then upgrade to a 5070 later, you can then sell that 5060 for maybe $200 or so, which slashes the cost of the 5070. This is not a concept that's possible with laptops. Well, at least most laptops. Hopefully in the future it's more popular, but desktops have a clear win in this category right now. With a laptop, it's basically an all or nothing event because if you want additional performance, you're gonna have to buy an entirely new model. Now, there are some workarounds, maybe with like an external GPU, but honestly, I've never been a huge fan of that, and I'm not gonna dive super deep into the pros and cons because that could be an entirely different video. So next up, we have stability, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't have any fancy benchmarks or charts to prove what I'm about to say. I'm gonna be relying on just my PC gaming experience after almost 30 years now. Desktops have a clear advantage here. When it comes to the gaming performance of a desktop, or even just navigating around windows, opening up browsers, and daily use stuff, the experience just doesn't really change over time. Sure, your operating system could get bogged down a bit, and that's why I like to reinstall them every year or two, but for the most part, the performance doesn't really change. With laptops, again, I can't actually prove this with numbers, but I feel like they just get bogged down way faster. Over time, laptops just start to feel sluggish, and I think the need to format and reinstall your operating system is much higher compared to a desktop. Maybe it's because they're putting in so much work to keep these components cool that it just becomes less effective over time and then more thermal throttling happens. I'm not really sure, and I can only explain what I've seen over the last few decades, but no matter which laptop brand I buy, other than a MacBook to be honest, they all just get sluggish way quicker. The performance of a desktop feels much more predictable, so they get the win here. So with all these comparisons done, before I recommend who should actually buy a laptop or build a desktop, let's talk about the cons that all PC gamers are gonna have to go through no matter which option you go with. I know the PC master race hates to hear this, but compared to a gaming console, a gaming PC is way less streamlined and requires more work. No matter if you buy a laptop, pre-build, or build the desktop yourself, there's some cons to PC gaming that I think are worth mentioning in a video like this. You're always gonna have to take care of your drivers to get the most performance possible, and yes, drivers can sometimes actually break or cause an issue, so you need to stay up to date with what's going on with them. With PCs, there's always something that also needs troubleshooting. That situation of you coming home from work or school and just want to fire up a game to wind down and relax never goes as smoothly as it should. There's always shaders to cache, drivers to download, a pesky Windows update, or something that steals your attention. I'm actually currently teaching this concept to my 4 and 6-year-old who think it's the end of the world when the Minecraft server needs a quick update and a reboot. Overall, they're just not nearly as streamlined as a console, but you're gonna run into this in PC gaming no matter what. I don't think either option really has an advantage here. Honestly, most of this probably stems from Windows as the operating system, so if you run a Linux distro, you'll probably have a smoother time, after you actually learn how to use Linux. So then who are the people that should buy a gaming laptop versus the type of people that should build a gaming desktop? Let's break that down real quickly. For laptops, I would say a student or dorm room gamer, a professional that travels, maybe a kid that travels between parents' houses or their buddies' houses to play together, or anybody that lives within a very limited space. A laptop can tremendously help with all of those situations, but don't ignore that if you have 2 places that you frequently travel between, that's a fantastic excuse to build 2 gaming PCs, but obviously that's way more expensive. Now for custom-built desktops, these are great for younger, middle to high school kids that game in the same place every single day, an adult that's settled down and not moving or traveling anytime soon, or honestly anybody that just wants to explore the hobby of PC building. Remember, building is indeed a separate hobby compared to gaming. If you have no aspirations of researching parts, staying updated on the hardware markets, learning how to build and all that, then you should definitely go with a laptop or even consider a pre-built desktop. You don't have to build if you don't want to. With all that said, hopefully that steers you on the right path on which route you should go down. One of the coolest features of PC gaming is that we have so much flexibility and we can do whatever we want. We aren't limited to just the 1 or 2 versions that a console manufacturer puts out every 5 to 10 years. We have the ultimate flexibility in choosing the best type of gaming device for us. And if you want to see just one more example of a $1,000 custom built desktop that I did myself, that video is up on the screen right now.